Cry God for Harry, England and St George. His Majesty's government has decided our telephones will screech at us on St George's Day as a test warning. I'm afraid to say I've disabled my government warning system because I think that it will end up being used in the way the Met Office gives us warning, to tell us the blindingly obvious. That is to say that the weather's going to be hot and perhaps we should have a glass of water. Or there may be a storm and it may not be wise to go out, or it may be cold and we should wrap up warmly. I don't think that that is why we have telephones. I think we have them as a service that we want to use, that we pay for to communicate with people, not to be shouted at by the government that it's maybe trivial. And if there's something that has happened that is serious, won't we actually know anyway? Those of you who watch GB News will undoubtedly know, because you'll have heard it on the news. But if something is building up to a great disaster, are we to assume that people are so stupid that they haven't paid any attention to what's been going on? And this seems to me a mistaken role for the state to be taking. It is back to the nanny state, warning us, telling us, mollycoddling us, when instead they should just let people get on with their lives and make sensible decisions for themselves. And it's really an intrusive extension of the information that was used during COVID. During COVID, the government got access to our mobile records to know what people's movements were, to know, were we going into work, were we going around the country, were we moving, were we staying at home. They could say whether a telephone was being used close to its home base, its home registered address for billing, or was it being used further afield. It was being used essentially to monitor people's behaviour as part of the lockdown policy. But that's not why we have mobile telephones. We have them for us, not for the state. And if the state wishes to use them in this way, it has to be extraordinarily careful. It has to find the right type of emergency to tell people about. And what does fall into that category? I don't think the weather does. That there are already weather forecasts, and we have them on this programme every day, but there are newspaper reports and so on. What type of emergency would it be with COVID, for example? It took days, if not weeks, to build up before people realised there was an emergency people needed to be warned about. So it's hard to see what the right case for this will be. It's the government doing it because it can, and interfering in our lives because it can. But I take the opposite view. I don't want the government to interfere in my life unless it has to. And that should be a guiding principle for the state's interrelationship with the individual. So my advice to you, if you want to know the news, watch GB News. If you want to be lectured and shouted at by the government, allow them to. But as I say, I've switched mine off. But I want to know what you think. Get in touch with me, please. As always, email me at mailmog@gbnews.